Okay, so this is the homepage of Rangeland Analysis Platform, and probably the most common use on this part of it. There's a lot of different tools, but probably the most commonly used one is if you look on the Launch tab, far left, and go to Production Explorer. This is where a lot of planners will go to try to determine what historic production has been on a piece of property. And so I'll go through just a sample of my place. And when you look at this screen on the left-hand side, it's pretty step oriented. So you go through just from 1 to 2, looking at the time frame, what you want to look at, looking at the area. You can load a KML file or a zip file into this, or you can select an area based upon the screen that you'll see and what you choose. So your two options is to load a shapefile or KM. I'm just going to draw a feature. And so when I do that, it brings up the map of the US, and I like to go to satellite so I can see actually where I am at. And then you can just, with your mouse, just zoom in to the area. And so where my cursor is there, or my hand, that's Kansas City area. As you zoom in a little bit further, you're going to find a location if you continue, or you can go over here to the search button. This is where I live, and you can just left click and drag that screen however you want to do it. But you can zoom in, zoom out, with your mouse very easily. And so to look at a production data set of information, you'll digitize an area. And so if it's an odd shaped pasture, not square, you're going to want to use this 5-sided polygon drawing tool. And you just start to draw with the cursor on the boundary of the unit. So, and you just click on it as you go around the boundary. When you get to where it draws everything in, that's your unit that you're trying to measure. You hit finish, and that then gives you a digitized view of what you just drew. And then step 2 is choosing the period of time that you want to look at the production data for. And so I typically try to keep it within a 10-year window, if you will. Since 25 is not over yet, I won't choose this year because it's still calculating, and the satellite flies every 16 days over this, looking at greenness. So it's not going to have a complete set of data for 2025 yet. So I'll choose 2014 through 2024. Down here at the bottom underneath the digitized unit that I drew, hit calculate time series. And so it's going now into the databases and looking at all the production data estimates for the last 10 years. So it says, congratulations, you've got all your data imported. Then you go back up here to the top and you can look at the historical production. And so if I click on that over here to the left-hand side, then for that time period or that timestamp that I put in there, 2014 to 2024, the average annual production was 3,350 pounds. And again, that's just looking at the data that comes from clippings that individuals have done in the field, and also then ground truthing that with the greenness that the satellite sees as it flies over every 16 days. It gives you kind of the averages of what the differences have been over time. If you look down below, it kind of charts that out so you can see the fluctuations. Let me go back and give you an example why that's important to look at. We'll go back here and let's pull back to 2010, and we'll pull that in there as well. Show you a few more extremes when we've had drought as a part of that. So in 2010, we had a really good year, good production. 2011, we had an extremely drouthy year, so almost 30% less. So from 33 down to 2,300, 1,000 pounds less in production. 2012 was a little better, 2013 was a little better, 2014 still dry, and then we kind of got back up to where we had, typically been running prior to that drought for the next few years. 2018 was a dry year, 2019 a little better, 2020 dry, 21 pretty good, and then the last 3 years up until this year, we were below average precip and below average forage production. So it kind of gives you, a look of what that satellite saw versus what clippings were done on the land, and then compares the two and comes up with values. It's a starting point. It's not completely accurate, but it is a good starting point. It's a set of data that producers can use. It's a set of data that practitioners can use because you can't go back in time and clip something from a previous year. So it does kind of give you an idea. If you do, or you're able to clip something in the present year and come up with production numbers, then at least you can kind of tell, how close are these estimates. We feel like they're pretty decent. They may be, 10% off in certain situations that I've done anyway, at least in the eastern part of the state. So yeah, this 3,349, for example, may be closer to 36 or 3,700 pounds, but it's a good starting point and makes good comparisons. So after you look at that, if a producer wants to develop a stocking rate, or let me back up, if you want to develop a report, so I can go in there and I can put craft in there, and I can download that information and make an electronic file, show you what that looks like. That has everything out there. I can save that then to, a producer's file or my own file, whatever that might be. It gives a breakdown of what those years were. It gives you a kind of a chart there that also kind of shows when that drought or when those droughts occurred, when those good years occurred. So it's a pretty good data set to kind of keep as a historical record. So I'll X out of that and then go back to the last part of this, which is really a fun feature, and that's to develop a stocking rate. So again, I can put my name in there. It tells me how many acres that I digitized in that land unit. If I want to choose the size of animal that I have out there, I can either type in a number, or I can use the up or down arrow to get to that point. So I'll just choose a 1,200 pound cow. How many days am I actually going to graze it? So a lot of times in my place, we graze 120 days. You plug in what the animal consumes on a daily basis, which the USDA number for that is typically 3% as an average, their body weight every day. So what they consume in air dry forage. We only pass 25% of what is out there in a growing season through the animal. And then if there, is things like extreme slope or greater distance to water that they have to travel, then we can make some adjustment there. Because I have adequate water throughout my pasture, that pasture is fairly small in size. It's whatever is there, 100% of it is going to be exposed to those cattle. So then I just simply hit calculate stocking rate. It brings up the map that I digitized. It brings up what the average production was, what the lowest was, what the highest value was. And then it tells me that on the average, I could run for 120 days about 17 cows. In those drought years, that number would be somewhere in the 13 range. When production is above average, it may be up around 20. And so then the variability between the two, the highs and the lows, is reflected there. It also then gives you just a kind of a block diagram or chart there that you can look at. It goes through what the calculations actually or how they are done, the size of the field, the production, how much forage and dry matter and tons is there, harvest efficiency, what they are required in dry matter, what is available, how much is actually consumed, and then it runs through the calculation. And then it breaks it down by year too, what that would have looked like had you been able to adjust your stocking rate on an annual basis. So that part's pretty hard to do because you don't know just exactly when that rainfall event's going to occur, and so it's always kind of a moving target. But anyway, it goes through all the calculations, and you can then you can download that report. And so just like in the previous screen, I can open that up, brings it into an Excel spreadsheet. I can click on the enable button to edit, and I can go in there and I can save that to a customer file or save that to a year, whatever that might be, the decisions that you made, and it'll save that electronic file of what decisions that you made or that stocking rate that you developed based upon that. So that's kind of the basis of probably the biggest piece of what this tool does. Let me back out of that spreadsheet and go back to this part here. In that situation, you can also look at what current year's production is. And so if you see there on the left-hand side, it's given me production through December 2nd. So it's not completed the year yet. And the normal production through that time period would have been about 3,200. And this again, I think, is where there might be some, cause for, wondering whether it's completely solid or accurate every time, because the production that we had this year has been really good. And so 2,800 pounds is a whole lot more, close to what some of those drought years were versus than what we actually saw in true production this year. So anyway, it's a good estimate tool that can be used for, people trying to get on a benchmark or at least, start in a safe place. It's not going to overestimate. I'm pretty confident of that. So that's probably the main thing, Katie, on that. There are some other pieces of that tool that I don't spend a lot of time